Your support means the world to us. With 90% of our viewers yet to subscribe, we need your help to continue creating engaging content. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and let us know where you're watching from by leaving your city in the comments below. I had always believed my marriage was solid, built on love, trust, and unwavering commitment. But as I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching my wife toss clothes into her suitcase without so much as a glance in my direction, I realized how utterly wrong I had been. Her movements were hurried, almost dismissive, like she was packing for a weekend getaway that meant nothing. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I once thought I knew better than anyone, now felt like a stranger standing before me. "I'm going on this trip with the girls," she said, her tone indifferent, her gaze fixed on the bag as she folded a dress with deliberate precision. Then she turned, her lips curling into a slow, deliberate smirk. "And just so you know, I'll be spending time with a real man. Just to see how it feels." Her words should have shattered me, should have sparked an argument, a desperate plea, or at the very least, some kind of reaction. But I felt nothing. If anything, her cruelty only confirmed what I had already suspected. She was gone. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally. She had left long ago. And I had seen the signs. At first, they were subtle, the kind of shifts that could be brushed off as a busy schedule or the natural ebb and flow of a long-term marriage. She started dressing differently, putting more effort into her appearance, even on days when she was supposedly just meeting her friends for brunch. "That dress looks nice," I had told her once, watching as she slipped into a pair of heels she hadn't worn in years. "Thanks," she had replied quickly, not even looking at me as she adjusted her lipstick in the mirror. That small moment had left a bitter taste in my mouth. Then there was her phone. Once left casually on the counter, it was now glued to her hand, always face down, notifications silenced. A new passcode appeared, one she had conveniently forgotten to mention. "Hey, what's your passcode?" I asked one evening. She barely looked up. "Oh, I changed it." "Yeah. What is it?" A brief pause. "I'll tell you later." Later never came. The late nights started soon after. Girls' nights stretched longer than before. She would come home glowing, not from laughter or fun conversations, but from something else, something unspoken. "Had fun?" I asked one night as she kicked off her heels. She hummed softly, a dreamy, distracted sound. She didn't look at me. She didn't touch me. I tried convincing myself it was nothing. I loved her. I trusted her. That's what marriage was about, right? But then I heard her. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I had woken up thirsty in the middle of the night and walked toward the kitchen when I heard her voice, soft and hushed, affectionate in a way she hadn't been with me in years. "I can't wait," she whispered, her voice tinged with excitement. A giggle. Then, "He has no idea." My stomach twisted. I should have confronted her, demanded the truth. But something inside me shifted at that moment. This wasn't just betrayal, this was arrogance. She thought she was outsmarting me. She thought I was oblivious. She thought she had already won. So I played along. I became the perfect, unsuspecting husband, kissing her goodbye, pretending to believe her flimsy excuses, letting her think she was getting away with it. Until today. She zipped up her suitcase, adjusting the straps like she was heading off on some carefree vacation. "Are you sure you don't need help booking your hotel?" I asked, feigning casual concern. She waved me off, barely looking up from her phone. "No, we already have everything figured out." She didn't know I had already checked her browsing history. She didn't know I had seen the hotel reservation under a single name, his name. She didn't know I had found her flight confirmation tucked away in her email's trash folder. There was no girls' trip. There was only him. And then, the final blow, her smirk. "I'll be with a real man," she repeated, watching me closely, waiting for a reaction. I nodded. "Okay." That threw her off. She blinked, expecting me to argue, to beg. "I'll text you when I land," she added hesitantly. "Sure." She lingered, waiting for something, but I gave her nothing. With an annoyed sigh, she grabbed her suitcase and walked out the door. She thought she had pulled off the perfect betrayal. She had no idea. Because while she was boarding her flight, I was already one step ahead. The moment she left, I moved swiftly. First, the finances. We had a joint account, her first mistake. She had gotten too comfortable using it for household expenses, vacations, and more recently, luxury items I knew weren't for me. Over the past few weeks, I had quietly transferred my paychecks into a private account. Now, with her gone, I drained the joint account. Not illegally, of course. I left exactly half, just enough to stay within legal bounds. But the moment she tried using our card for a fancy dinner with her real man, she'd be in for a nasty surprise. Next, freezing the credit cards. She had her own, but I was the one paying the bills. Not anymore. The moment she maxed it out, that was her problem. Then, changing every password, bank accounts, utilities, streaming services. Not out of pettiness. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly, it was about cutting her off completely. She wanted a new life. She could have it, without me. The legal side was already handled. I had met with a lawyer weeks ago, back when I first started noticing the late-night texts and secret smiles. By the time she was sipping cocktails with her real man, the divorce papers were ready. And the best part? The evidence. I could have confronted her, demanded an explanation, but I needed solid proof, not just for the divorce, but to ensure she couldn't twist the story in her favor. That's where my private investigator came in. I had hired him 3 weeks ago, right after that hushed phone call. He was good, very good. By the time she was clinking wine glasses with her new lover, I had everything I needed. A full report. Time-stamped photos. A highlight reel of her betrayal, sitting in my inbox. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. And when she came back home, she was going to find that everything had changed. By sunrise, she was still there, curled up in the corner of my porch. Her once flawless hair tangled, her designer clothes wrinkled and stained from the concrete. At some point in the night, she had pulled out her phone, desperately calling and texting. But no one came for her. Not her so-called friends. Not her real man. By 7 a.m., she had given up. The Ring camera captured it all, the moment the realization hit her. She was alone. And she had done it to herself. The moment of closure had come and gone, yet the weight of it lingered in the air. For a brief second, there was nothing but silence, until the anger returned, sharp and raw. She scoffed, her eyes flashing. So that's it. You just throw me away like trash. I arched a brow, my expression unreadable. Isn't that what you did to me? To us? Her nostrils flared. I made a mistake. You don't have to. No, I interrupted, stepping forward, my voice low but firm. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Repeatedly. You planned it, hid it, lied about it. That's not a mistake, that's who you are. Her lips trembled. I thought you loved me. I exhaled slowly, the weight of the past pressing against my ribs. I did. And look where that got me. Desperation flickered in her eyes as she took a tentative step closer. Sam. I don't have anywhere to go. I shrugged. Not my problem. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. Wow. I can't believe you're actually doing this. I met her gaze, unwavering. Believe it. Then, without another word, I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door behind me. I didn't look back. An hour later, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, I glanced at the screen. Voicemail. 3 new messages. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face before pressing play. The first message was cautious, almost tentative. Sam, it's me. Look, I know you're angry, but please just call me back. I don't know what to do. The second was thinner, her voice laced with desperation. Sam, I swear I wasn't thinking straight. It wasn't what I thought it would be. Please just talk to me. The third was silence at first, then a broken whisper. He left me. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth she had spent months avoiding. The reality she had refused to face while sneaking around behind my back. He had never wanted her. Not really. He had entertained the fantasy, indulged in the thrill of something forbidden. But the moment she became real, the moment she was no longer an escape but a responsibility, he discarded her. But that wasn't my problem. I deleted the messages. Over the next few days, she tried everything. Calls, texts, even showing up at my workplace once. She stood outside, waiting. My co-workers whispered, casting sympathetic glances my way. I ignored her. She had nowhere else to go. The friends she thought would stand by her, they vanished the moment she was no longer the fun, carefree version of herself. The ones who had cheered her on during her so-called girls' trip, the trip that had been a lie from the start, they wanted nothing to do with her now. She called her parents. They didn't bail her out either. Eventually, she checked into a cheap motel across town. My private investigator, yes, I kept him on, sent me an update. She had arrived late at night, exhausted, alone. She had tried to use her credit card, only to find it maxed out. With nothing but the last scraps of money she had left, she was forced to experience life without me as her safety net. And she hated it. A week later, she showed up again. This time, there was no anger. No arrogance. No pride. She was desperate. I was sitting on my porch, coffee in hand, when she approached. Gone was the confident woman who once stood beside me. She looked smaller somehow, frail, the weight of her choices carved into her features. "Sam," she started, voice soft. I didn't respond. She swallowed hard. I don't know what to do. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Her breath hitched. I lost my job. They found out about everything. It got around. I didn't blink. Actions have consequences. A shaky breath left her lips. I don't have anywhere to go. I leaned back in my chair, my expression impassive. Not my problem. Tears welled in her eyes. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect you to take me back, but Sam, I need help. I studied her for a long moment, then set my coffee down and stood. She took a hopeful step forward. I shook my head. You burned every bridge. A choked sob tore from her throat. Sam, please. I exhaled slowly, my gaze steady. Let me ask you something. She blinked. If I were the one who cheated, who lied, who humiliated you, would you be standing here? Her mouth opened, then closed. We both knew the answer. I nodded. Exactly. With that, I turned and walked inside. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't wait for another plea, another excuse. I shut the door and let the silence settle. But she didn't move. Minutes stretched on, and she remained on my porch, frozen in place. From behind the curtain, I watched. Would she finally accept it? That this was the end. That no amount of begging could undo what she had done. A part of me expected her to lash out, to call me cold, heartless. But she didn't. Instead, she sank down onto the steps, burying her face in her hands. And for the first time since this all began, she didn't try to spin the narrative. She didn't try to manipulate me. She just broke. And I let her. In the weeks that followed, my life shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't second-guessing myself, contorting my needs to fit someone else's expectations. I focused on myself, on my work, my peace. I started going out more, grabbing drinks with co-workers, reconnecting with old friends. At first, it felt strange, stepping back into a world that no longer revolved around salvaging a broken marriage. But with each passing day, it became easier. And then, one night, I ran into Olivia. An old college friend. Someone who had always been there, lingering in the background, unnoticed. But now, she made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. Meanwhile, my ex-wife's world crumbled. The man she had thrown everything away for. He moved on, just as I had predicted. She called him, desperate for answers, for closure, but he wouldn't even pick up. The friends who had once welcomed her with open arms. They disappeared, not out of principle, but because she no longer had anything to offer them. Her career, once stable, once respected, gone. People whispered. Clients lost trust. Colleagues kept their distance. Eventually, her employer found a reason to fire her. And just like that, she had nothing. 3 months later, she reached out one last time. A single text, "Can we talk? Please?" I hesitated, then, for reasons I couldn't quite explain, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked different, tired, worn down. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. "I don't know why you agreed to see me." I leaned back. "Curiosity, I guess." A weak chuckle. "Yeah, that's fair." She looked at me then, something unreadable in her eyes. Regret. Sadness. Acceptance. "I know there's no fixing what I did," she murmured. I needed to say I'm sorry." I studied her. "Why now?" She exhaled. "Because I finally understand what I did. To you. To myself." And for the first time, she wasn't making excuses. Maybe that was enough. I nodded. "I hope you figure things out." A sad smile. "You really are done with me, aren't you?" I met her gaze. "I was done the moment you chose him." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't fight it. She just nodded. "Goodbye, Sam." And just like that, she was gone. For real this time.